Morning, Judge.
Morning. Annie,
Yes, Judge.
is somebody filling in for Julia Pullen today?
Only one could be just Jules, just Julia Dean, the only other one I'm familiar with. I can call her firm.
She is not in the waiting room.
Okay. Did you want me to give her a call?
Reach out to her.
Yes, Judge.
I'm moving on to the next case on the docket. Kalinowski there.
Can you hear us?
Are we unmuted?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Can you see us?
No.
Okay. Well, we're here.
There we go.
Now we can, I think.
There we go.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're on the record in 22 CPR 038639, estate of Edgar Emmett Carroll Jr. All those intended to testify, if you raise your right hand to be sworn by the court. You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Very good. Mr. Kalinowski, you may take it from here.
Thank you, Judge. Would you state your full name to the judge, please?
Troy Newton Whitehurst III.
And how are you related to Edgar Emmett Carroll Jr.?
Second cousin.
Okay. And we have filed an application to probate his last will and testament. He passed away on or about December the 4th, 2022. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that was at his home in Fort Bend County, Texas?
Yes, sir.
In Rosenberg. And he was 86 years old, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And at the time of his death, he maintained his residence and his domicile in Fort Bend County. Is that
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as I indicated, we filed an application to probate his will, and it was dated March 30th, 2022. And Judge, could y'all screenshot the will for identification purposes?
I can do that in 1 second.
Okay, now the judge has placed the will
Mhm.
on the screen. Can you identify that will, and particularly as we go to the last pages, his signature, can you identify that as being his last will and testament?
Yes, sir.
And that is, we're not there yet, but Judge, is that his signature?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And after that date, he never attempted to write another will or revoke his will?
No, he was happy with that one.
Okay. And were there any children born to him after the date of that will?
No, sir.
And was there any marriage dissolved after the date of that will?
No, sir.
His wife had preceded him in death a few
Yes, sir.
years ago. He did not apply for or receive any Medicaid benefits, correct? Medicaid, not Medicare. He was not in
No.
the nursing home. Okay.
No.
And he did name the First Presbyterian Church of Rosenberg as one of the beneficiaries under his will. Is that
Yes.
correct? And we will properly notify them after the judge signs the order. Right? Okay. And he also named you to be the independent executor over that estate. And you're qualified to serve. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You've never been convicted of a felony or a crime
No, sir.
involving moral turpitude?
No.
Okay. Judge, it is a non-taxable estate. My order has waiver of appraisers, and we ask that the court admit the will to probate and appoint Mr. Whitehurst as the independent executor.
All right, the court heard the testimony of Troy and Whitehurst III. He testified as to the proof of death, validity of the will, and other facts. The court will admit the will into probate and appoint Mr. Whitehurst as independent executor to serve without bond, and appraisers will be waived as well. Mr. Whitehurst, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Judge, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you as well, Mr. Kalinowski. Have a good one.
Okay.
All righty.
Roger, we're heading back to the first case on the docket.
Okay.
Hello, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry about that. There we go. Got us all zoomed in there.
All right. Let's go ahead and get started. We're on the record in 22 CPR 038607, estate of Pingjah N. Shaw, also known as Pingjah Nathal Shaw. And I apologize if I mispronounce that. All those who intend to testify, if you'd raise your right hand to be sworn by the court. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Swear.
Very good. Yeah, Miss Pullen, you may take it here.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Shaw, could you please state your name for the court?
Ketki Pankaj Shah.
Yes. And Mr. Adair, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, good. Ms. Shaw, is it true that you are the applicant in this matter?
Yes,
And is it true that you're also known as, so you're Ketki P. Shaw as well?
yes,
And is it true that Pankaj N. Shaw, also known as Pankaj Nathalil Shaw, the decedent, was your husband?
yes,
And is it true that Mr. Shaw passed away on September 27th, 2022 at his residence in Fort Bend County, Texas?
September 7th,
Oh, September 7th, yes.
yes,
And is it true that Mr. Shaw was 71 years of age when he passed away?
yes,
And is it true that Mr. Shaw was a resident of Fort Bend County, Texas when he passed away?
yes,
And is it true that we have filed a copy of his last will and testament with the court? And do you recognize this as a copy of the last will and testament of Pankaj and Shaw?
yes,
And then going to the last page, do you recognize your husband's signature on this last page of the will?
yes,
And Your Honor, I asked for judicial notice that an original of this will is on file with the court.
Court shall take judicial notice.
Thank you. Ms. Shaw, did you, to the best of your knowledge, is it true that your husband never revoked this will?
yes,
And after the date of the will, is it true that no marriage of Mr. Shaw's was dissolved?
yes,
And after the date of the will, is it true that no children were born to or adopted by Mr. Shaw?
yes,
And is it true that the will does not provide for any gifts to the state of Texas, a political subdivision thereof, or any charity?
yes,
Is it true that the will appoints you as independent executrix to serve without bond or other type of security?
Yes,
And are you qualified and not disqualified to serve as independent executrix and receive letters testamentary?
yes,
And are you requesting that this court waive the appointment of appraisers?
yes,
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Shaw. Your Honor, we request that Ms. Shaw be appointed as independent executrix to serve without bond, that letters testamentary be issued and appraisers be waived.
All right, the court heard the testimony of Ketki Pengaj Shaw. She testified as to the proof of death, the will, and other facts. The court will admit the will to probate and appoint Ms. Shaw as independent executor to serve without bond, and appraisers will be waived as well. Ms. Shaw, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Pullen, anything further for the record?
No, Your Honor.
All right, y'all have a good day.
Thank you, you too.
Hey, Roger, how you doing? It's been a while.
Good, how you doing?
Mr. Carter, just stay muted. We're going to move on through some other cases and we'll get to you shortly.
Thank you, Judge. Just want to say hi to Roger.
Good morning. Mr. Klazowski.
Good morning, Judge.
Good morning. Is that your client with you this morning?
That is my client. I apologize for being a little late. I had a previous hearing in the 434th this morning, so that got finished early. So here I am.
You're fine.
Good.
Let's go ahead and get started. We're on the record in 22 CPR 038618, the state of Samuel Morales. All those who intend to testify, if you'd raise your right hand to be sworn by the court. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Mr. Klazowski, you may take it from here.
Thank you, Judge. Would you please state your full name for the court?
Samuel Morales Jr.
And we're here to probate the last will and testament of your father, Samuel Morales, correct?
Yes, sir.
And he died on December the 16th of 2022 in Fort Bend County at the age of 90.
Yes, sir.
And he was domiciled and had a fixed place of residency here in Fort Bend County at the time of his death.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes.
We have previously submitted to the court his original last will and testament. Judge, if that's available.
I can put it up there. 1 second.
And Sam, do you recognize
Yes, sir.
that to be his last will?
Yes.
And there's a signature page coming up. Do you recognize that to be his last,
Yes, sir.
his signature? He was over the age of 18 and of sound mind at the time he signed this will, correct?
Yes, sir.
To your knowledge, it was never revoked at any time.
No, sir.
No children were born to or adopted by him after the date of this will.
No, sir.
And his only marriage to your mother dissolved after the making of this will, but because of her death.
Yes.
And the will does not leave anything to the state of Texas, governmental agency, or any charitable organizations. Is that correct?
No.
Judge, we'd ask that you take judicial notice of the will.
Court shall take judicial notice.
Thank you, Judge. And then the will names you to serve as independent executor of the estate without bond. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you are qualified, and there's nothing that would disqualify you from serving as the executor of this estate,
I am
correct?
qualified. Yes, sir.
And you're asking the court to admit your father's will to probate and to appoint you as the independent executor to serve without bond. And you're asking the court to waive any appraisers of the estate, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's all we have, Judge.
All right, the court heard the testimony of Samuel Morales Jr. He testified as to the proof of death, the will, and other facts. The court will admit the will into probate and appoint Mr. Morales as independent executor to serve without bond, and appraisers will be waived as well. I'm very sorry for your loss, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Mr.
Judge.
Kozlowski, anything further?
That will be it, if we may be excused.
You may be excused. Have a great day.
You too, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, Mr. Carter, I got a message saying that you have to run to another court. Let me see if everybody is here for your case, and I will bump you up to knock it out real quick since you are present.
Thank you, Judge.
Good morning.
Good morning. But I think we are all connected.
Morning.
Good morning. Let's go
morning.
ahead and get started. We're on the record in 21 CPR 035467 in state of Marvin, Charles Jobert. All those who intend to testify, if you'd raise your right hand to be sworn by the court. Each of you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony provided here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I did.
Yes.
Very good. Miss Wright, you may take it from here. Let's start with the airship, and then once we've completed the airship, we'll move into the administration.
Sounds good. I'd like to call the witnesses on the airship, please. Mr. Charles Furden,
Here.
please state your name for the court.
Charles Burdine.
Had you known Marvin Charles Jobert for over 45 years as a friend before his death?
Yes.
Did Marvin Charles Jobert die on or about June 22nd, 2020 in Houston, Harris County, Texas?
That is correct. Yes.
Was Marvin Charles Jobert, age 69 years, residing at 4410 Timber Creek Court, Missouri City, Texas, Fort Bend County, Texas, 77459 at or before his death?
Yes.
Was Marvin Charles Jobert married at the time of his death?
Yes.
He was married to Janie Lee Jobert, is that correct?
That is correct.
And to your knowledge, Mr. Jobert had no previous marriages and had never been divorced.
That's right.
Did Marvin Charles Jobert have any children born or adopted by him?
None other than Shayna and Marlon.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Carter.
Thank you, Judge. Hello, Charles. How you doing?
Good morning.
I do believe this is our third court setting. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm starting to like it.
And you testified during Janie's hearing as well, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, this has been going on for a little bit, so we've all seen the document that you've all filled out on this. I do believe it was entered into evidence the last time we were at a hearing, and that was the questionnaire that we went over 2 years ago, correct?
Correct.
And we met in my office for that one, I believe, correct?
I think it was another Zoom call.
I think you are correct. That's right. It was during the COVID issue, so we
Yeah.
did not see each other then. But that document, and you've reviewed it twice now, and I think it's already in evidence in this court for this hearing. If you were to, do you remember what was in there?
Pretty much, yes.
All right, we talked about how long you knew them, and that was established by Miss Wright as 45 years, correct?
Right. Yes.
And as far as you know, you are not related and do not own or owe the estate anything, correct?
That is correct.
You're not related to anybody in the
No.
estate, correct? All right. And other than the two children, were there any other heirs that you would have known of?
No, none.
Talking about a will, did you know or would you have known if there was a will made?
I would not have known.
Okay, so to follow on from that, you wouldn't know if there wasn't one, whether or not there was a search done for one, correct?
Correct.
Pass this witness, Judge.
Ms. Wright, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to call Mrs. Ferdinand.
I'm here.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Please state your name for the court.
Gail Verdine, Ferdin.
Okay. Had you known Marvin Charles Jobert for over 45 years as a friend before his death?
I had, yes,
Did Mr. Marvin Charles Jobert die on or about June 22nd, 2020 in Houston, Harris County, Texas?
yes,
Was Mr. Jobert a 69 years and residing at 4410 Timber Creek Court, Missouri City, Fort Bend County, Texas, 77459 at or before his death?
yes, that's right.
Was Mr. Jobert married at the time of his death to Janie Lee Jobert?
Yes, he was.
And to your knowledge, Mr. Jobert had no previous marriages and had never been divorced.
That's correct.
Did Marvin Charles Jobert have any children born or adopted by him?
This Shana and Marlon.
Okay, pass the witness.
Carter.
Thank you. Gail, how you doing? It's Jeff Carter.
Morning, good morning. How are you?
I'm well. I think we're almost done with this. All right. As with your husband, we met over Zoom as well and went through the questionnaire, correct?
Yes, we did.
I do believe that that was entered in as ad items exhibit number 2 at our last hearing for this issue. And I think we went over a similar document with Janie, but if you do you remember the contents of the questionnaire we went over?
Yes, I did.
And to the best of your knowledge, would all those questions be answered the same today as they were on the day that you filled this out?
Yes, I would.
All right. And just to clarify, you are a true disinterested party. In other words, you are not related to the family, correct?
That's correct.
And the family owes you no monies, correct?
Yes.
Pass the witness.
Ms. Wright, anyone further for the airship?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, then, after listening to testimony of Charles Ferdin and Gail Ferdin, the court finds by clear and convincing evidence these errors are those listed in the judgment declaring airship. Now, Mr. Carter, I'm going to discharge you from your duties as attorney ad litem in this matter. I show you have a fee in the amount of $1,127.50. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is that agreed to? That's right.
Yes, it is, Your Honor.
Okay, then. I'll award you a fee in the amount of $1,127.50. Mr. Carter, you're free to go. Ms. Wright, let's move forward with the administration.
Sounds good, Your Honor. May I call my first witness?
You may.
I'll call Shana Stewart, please. Will you please state your name for the record? And if we, Mr. and Mrs. Ferdin, thank you all so much. I don't think there's anything else needed.
Thank you.
They're free to go. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Please state your name for the court.
Shana Stewart.
Are you the person that filed the application for letters of administration?
Yes,
Were you personally acquainted with Marvin Charles Jobert?
yes.
What was the relationship to Marvin Charles Jobert?
He was my father.
Did Marvin Charles Jobert die on or about June 22nd, 2020 in Houston, Harris County, Texas?
Yes,
Was Mr. Jobert 69 years of age, residing in Missouri City, Fort Bend, Texas, at or before his death?
yes.
To your knowledge, did Marvin Charles Jobert die without a will?
To my knowledge,
At the time of his death, did Marvin Charles Jobert own property valued in excess of $10,000 in Fort Bend County, Texas?
yes.
Does a necessity exist for the administration of Marvin Charles Jobert's estate?
Yes,
Is there any reason why you should not serve as an independent administrator?
no.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. After listening to testimony of Shauna Candela Stewart, the court finds the decedent died intestate and there's a necessity for administration. The court will grant the request the applicant appoint Ms. Stewart as independent administrator of the estate. Ms. Stewart, I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Ms. Wright, anything further for the record?
That is it. Thank you, Your Honor. You have a great day.
Y'all have a great day as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Mr. Askins, is your client with you?
It's a self-proven will. It's just me, Your Honor.
Oh, did you draft the will? Did your office draft the
Yes,
will?
yes, Your Honor. I did draft the will.
Okay. 1 second. All right, we're on the record in 22 CPR 038633, estate of Martha Elizabeth Riley. You may proceed, Mr. Askins.
Your Honor, I believe I've been sworn.
You're an officer of this court. I don't swear in officers of the court.
Thank you, Your Honor. Appreciate it. Judge Martha Elizabeth Riley died in Sugar Land, Texas on July 12th, 2022. She did have a fixed place of residence in Stafford, Fort Bend County, Texas at the time of her death. She made a will dated October 31st, 2019, which I personally prepared at my office at the direction of Ms. Riley. She never revoked this will to the best of my knowledge. There were no children born to or adopted by Ms. Riley after the making of this will. There was no marriage that ended in divorce after the making of the will. And 4 years have not elapsed since the date of death of Martha Elizabeth Riley. No state or governmental agency nor charitable institution is named as a devotee in the will. There is a necessity for administration of the estate, and the will does name Kevin Michael Riley, the surviving spouse of Martha Elizabeth Riley, to serve as independent executor. He is qualified and not disqualified to serve as independent executor. This is a non-taxable estate, Your Honor. I ask that you would waive the appointment of appraisers, admit the will to probate, and appoint Kevin Michael Riley as independent executor to serve without bond.
All right. The court heard the testimony of Clark Askins. He testified as to the proof of death, validity of the will, and other facts. The court will admit the will and the probate and appoint Mr. Kevin Michael Riley as independent executor to serve without bond, and appraisers will be waived. Mr. Askins, anything further for the record?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Have a great day.
You too. Thank you, sir.
Morning, Ms. Duff. Oh, you're muted.
Good morning, Your Honor.
There you go.
We've
All
had
right.
major computer issues and Wi-Fi issues. We got hacked last week, so.
Well, at least you're up
Happy to
and running. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Just let's get this done before something happens then. Oh,
Exactly.
We're on the record in 22 CPR 038587, estate of Dolores A. Bickett. Mr. Bickett, if you would please raise your right hand to be sworn by the court. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do.
Very good. Ms. Duff, you may take it from here.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Bickett, could you please state your name for the court?
John Hargrove Bickett.
Okay. And you were the husband of Dolores A. Bickett, is that correct?
That's correct.
She passed away on January 13th, 2022.
Yes.
And she was a resident of Fort Bend County, Texas at the time of her death.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And her residence was here, correct? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. And at the time of her death, she did own real property in the state of Texas, right?
I'm sorry.
Y'all owned a house in
Yes,
some
I
other
have.
Okay. And she did not apply or receive Medicaid benefits after March 1st of 2005.
No.
Okay. And now she left a valid will dated February 31st of 2001. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Your Honor, should I just show him?
I can put it
my
on the
copy?
screen right now.
Okay. Do you recognize this will as her last will and testament?
Yes.
And she did not revoke that will after the date of this will, correct?
No.
And she didn't have any children after the date of this will, correct?
No.
And she did not dissolve a marriage after the date of this will, is that correct?
No.
And neither the state, a governmental agency of the state, or a charitable organization are named in the will as a devisee, correct? Neither the state, a governmental agency, or a charitable organization. None of those were
No.
named in the
No.
will,
No.
correct?
No.
Just you.
Just me.
Okay,
Well, and the children.
right.
Yeah.
But no one else's name.
No. No.
Okay. And the will named you to be the independent executor, correct?
Yes.
And the will was made self-proved, meaning that it was signed by witnesses and
Yes.
things like that. Okay. And to your knowledge, are there any debts owed other than anything that would be secured by real estate from your wife? Does she have any debts?
There's some medical bills, but I don't
But
think.
you paid those,
Yeah,
right?
right, I paid those, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You've taken care of all the debts.
Yes, yes.
All right. And are you asking the court to admit this will to probate as a muniment of title only?
Yes.
Okay. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, the court heard the testimony of John Bickett. He testified as to the proof of death, like the will and other facts. The court will admit the will into probate as a muniment of title, and I'll waive the necessity of filing an affidavit of fulfillment of terms as well.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Duff, anything further?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Moore, good morning.
Morning, Your Honor. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Ms. Merkin, are you there?
Judge, I just spoke to her on the phone. Do you mind if I call
That's fine. There, her video's on now.
her? There we go. She just needs
Yeah,
to.
Ms. Merkin, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. We're on the record in 22 CPR 038638, estate of Howard W. Stern. Ms. Merkin, if you raise your right hand to be sworn by the court. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Very good. Mr. Moore, you may take it from here.
Judge, we're here to probate this will as muniment of title only. Ms. Merkin, would you still please state your full name?
Amy Merkin.
And were you a friend of Howard Stern?
Yes.
Mr. Stern died on February 12th of 2018. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it has been more than 4 years since he passed away. Is that correct?
Yes,
And Mrs. Stern died on September 19th, 2019. Is that correct? That's wrong.
2021.
I'm reading 2021 and my brain said 2019. Mrs. Stern died on September 19th, 2021. Is that correct?
Correct, yes,
You are a co-executor of her estate that is pending in county court at law too. Is that correct?
correct.
And you and the other co-executors found out that Mr. Stern's will had not been probated. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And did Mrs. Stern tell you that there was not a need to probate his will?
Correct.
And that was
Yes.
because she was because she was a beneficiary. Is that correct?
Correct.
When Mr. Stern died, he was a resident of Fort Bend County. Is that correct?
Yes,
And he owned property in Fort Bend County. Is that correct?
yes,
And he left a will that was dated October 4th, 2013, that I hope we're going to see on the screen here.
I can pull it up 1 minute.
Thank you, Judge. Mrs. Merkin, do you recognize that as Mr. Stern's original will?
yes, that is his will.
And you've seen that, you have seen the original, correct?
Correct. I have it, yes.
And the will named Rhonda Stern to be the independent executor. Let me ask you, is that his signature there?
Yes,
And you recognize that?
I do.
Okay. That will named is Rhonda Stern to be the independent executor. Is that correct?
Yes,
And as we said before, she has passed away.
correct.
So the will named you to be the successor independent executor. Is that correct?
Yes,
And Mr. Stern never revoked this will. Is that correct?
correct.
No children were born to or adopted by Mr. Stern after this will was signed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He was never divorced after the will was signed.
Correct.
And there are no debts of this estate, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Stern named some charities in his will, but the entire estate went to his wife. Is that correct?
Correct.
There's no need for administration of this estate. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Stern did not receive any Medicaid benefits after March 1st of 2005. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And are you asking the judge to enter an order admitting this will to probate as a muniment of title only?
Correct.
That's all we have, Your Honor.
All right, the court heard the testimony of Amy Merkin. She testified as to the proof of death, bloody the will, and other facts. Now, the court finds that Amy Merkin is not in default for failing to offer the will for probate within 4 years of decedent's death. I'm going to go ahead and admit the will into probate as a muniment of title and waive the affidavit of fulfillment of terms in this matter as well. Ms. Merkin, I know it's been a while, but I want to express my condolences, and I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore, anything further for the record?
No, Your Honor, I think that's all we have. Thank you very much.
Very good. Very good. I'll have a good day.
Thank you, you too.
Roger, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. All right. Let's go ahead and get started again.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ms. Watson.
I am looking for the witnesses, a Karen Keller and Teresa Kilman.
Yes. So Miss Kilman is going to be with Karen, and then we're looking for Miss Keller. Karen, do you know if she got pulled in? I mean, if she's on.
See, I have her listed as Karen
Here she
Keeler,
is.
but I've got a Mary Keeler. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's her.
And I'm still waiting on Miss Graves to connect her audio.
Okay. Let me text her. There she is. Your Honor.
She still doesn't have her audio connected.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. We're still waiting on Miss Graves to connect her audio.
Miss Graves, it should say like join with Wi-Fi. You can't hear me.
She can't hear you.
Okay.
And there was an unmute button on my end too. I don't know if it matters, but I can't see anyone. I'm okay with that if you are.
There is a button for your video down there by the unmute.
Okay. Stop. It says stop video. I'm looking.
It has a red line in it. You won't be able to see.
I'm good as long as you can see me and we're good.
Miss Graves, you there?
Yes. Yes, I'm here. I can hear now.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
All right, then let's go ahead and get started. We're on the record in 20 CPR 035277, the state of Nancy Choate Kilman. All those who intend to testify, if you raise your right hand to be sworn by the court. Each of you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. I do.
Very good. Ms. Watson, let's start with the airship, and then we will move in. Well, we're doing an airship only, so let's just get take care of it.
Your Honor, Miss Keeler has an interview at 10. Is it okay if I ask her questions first and then she be excused?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. All right, Miss Keeler, I'm going to start with you. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you. Good, good. All right. Will you please state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Mary Keeler.
All right. And the decedent, Nancy Kilman, was your neighbor. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you had known Miss Kilman for how long?
Well, approximately about 2 to 3 years where we actually interacted. Yes.
Okay. And Miss Kilman, she passed away May 7th, 2020 in Fort Bend, Texas at the age of 86. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And at the time of her, to the best of your knowledge, she died without executing a will. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And to the best of your knowledge, she was a widow. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And then do you know of any children besides Miss Graves that Miss Kilman had?
No.
Okay. And based on your testimony today, would you say that Mrs. Graves is the sole heir to Ms. Kilman's estate?
Yes, she is.
And are you being paid for your testimony today?
Not at all.
Okay, and you are not an heir to Ms. Kilman's estate, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, I have no further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Ripon.
Hello, Ms. Keeler. I'm Fred Reapin. You may remember that we talked quite some time back. And I
Yes,
explained to you that I was appointed by the court to look into matters in this estate.
yes,
I think you told me that you and your husband both knew the deceased Miss Kilman.
yes.
Okay, and how far away from her did you live?
Just down the street, about
A
8
block.
And while you told Judge Morales that you had only really interacted with her maybe the last 2 or 3 years, I believe you told me that you had actually known her and known the family much longer than that. Is that correct?
Not much more than 5 years, though.
Okay. And how long had you known Ms. Graves, who is her daughter?
I've known her at least 8 to 10 years.
Okay, and did you know then who her mother was by dealing with Ms. Graves?
I knew of her mother and that she lived in the neighborhood.
And did you ever hear that the deceased Ms. Kilman, that she ever lived anywhere else where she was completely away and out of touch with family at any time?
No,
And you actually said you told me she lived with Ms. Graves at the time that you were interacting with her.
correct.
And how was it that you interacted with her?
We would occasionally have dinner over at Karen's, and occasionally we would go out to dinner, all of us.
And I believe you told me that you had never heard anything mentioned by anyone that ever suggested that the deceased Ms. Kilman had any children other than just Ms. Graves. Is that correct, what you told me?
Correct,
And is that correct today?
correct.
Thank you. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, anything further for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Keller, you're free to go. Good luck with your interview.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Marnie.
Bye.
Ms. Watson, call your next witness.
All right, I'd like to call Miss Karen Graves.
Hello,
Hello, okay, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so please state your name for the record.
Karen Ann Graves,
And the decedent, Nancy Kilman, was your mother, is that correct?
all my life.
All your life. And did your mother pass away on May 7th, 2020 in Katy, Fort Bend County, Texas at the age of 86?
Yes,
Okay, and she was residing with you in Fort Bend County at the time of her passing, is that correct?
yes,
And to the best of your knowledge and after a thorough search, Ms. Kilman died without executing a will, is that correct?
yes,
Okay. And at the time of her death, she was not married, is that correct?
she had been widowed. Yes,
That's right, because your dad, Warner Joe Kilman, predeceased her, is that correct?
correct.
Okay. And your mother did not have any living siblings, is that correct?
Just me.
Okay. And then her parents predeceased her, is that correct?
Yes,
And you are her only child, is that correct?
correct.
And she had not raised any other children, is that right?
She had not raised any other kids.
Okay, and so based on your testimony, you are, as her daughter and her only child, the sole heir to your mother's estate, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, I have nothing further for this witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Reapin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Hello, Ms. Graves. Do you recall
Hello.
talking with me previously?
I do.
We had a Zoom conference, I believe, didn't we?
Yes,
Okay. Now, after your father died, and I'm looking at records here that indicate that your father may have died somewhere before 1999. Would that be correct?
correct.
Did your mother always live with you thereafter?
No, she lived on her own in Fulshire for by herself, probably about 4 or 5 years. And then we sold her house in Fulshire, and she came and bought a house in my neighborhoods to be closer to me. And then ultimately we sold that house and she moved in with me.
Now, during that time that she was living in Fulshear, after your father died, were you in close contact with her constantly during that time?
Yes.
So you know that she never went off and got married again.
No.
Did you have any indication that your mother had ever married anyone before she married your father, who was Warner Joe Hillman?
She had never married before.
Your Honor, you told me that your mother had Alzheimer's during her last years when she lived with you. Is that correct?
She lived with me. She had some mild dementia, but it didn't get bad until I'd say about a year and a half before her death.
So that she was competent in your mind up until the time that she came to live with you.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's all the questions I have for this witness.
All right. Ms. Watson, call your next witness.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Ms. Teresa Kilman.
There you go. Okay, yes. This
Good
is
morning,
Teresa.
Ms. Kilman.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Teresa Pennell Kilman.
Okay, and you've known Ms. Kilman for over 40 years, is that right?
I've known her about 60 years.
Oh, 60 years, okay. And you've heard all of the testimony here today. Would you agree with the testimony with respect to Ms. Kilman dying without a will and her residing in Fort Bend County, Texas?
Yes.
Would you also agree that at the time of her death, she was not married and that Karen Ann Graves is her only child?
Yes.
And would you also agree that based on all the testimony and to the best of your knowledge, that Mrs. Graves would be the sole heir to Miss Kilman's estate?
Yes, I would.
And I just want to ask you, you are not being paid for your testimony today, is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and that you are not an heir to Miss Nancy Kilman's estate?
No.
Okay, I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Reapin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Kilman, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Fred Reapin. Do you recall talking with me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and your name is Kilman also.
Yes, it is.
And tell the court why your name is Kilman and the deceased is also a Kilman.
Yes. I was married to Jim Kilman, who was the brother of Warner Joe Kilman.
And did you and Jim marry first, or did Warner and Nancy marry first?
I'm sorry, could you
Not
repeat
Nancy.
that?
Yeah, Nancy.
Did mom marry before you and Jimmy?
No. Oh, yes, they did.
They were married when you married your husband?
Yes.
And did you know anything about any children that they had at the time that way back when you married your husband?
They had no children.
So you were married into the family by the time Nancy had her first child, who is
Yes.
with today. Now she's sitting there right next to you, isn't she, Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Is it your testimony that she is the only child ever born to Nancy Choate Kilman?
Yes.
Is there any possibility in your mind that she adopted any children?
No.
Did Mr. Kilman, the deceased Warner Joe Kilman, did he adopt any children or have any children of any other marriages?
No.
And did you all live fairly close and visited on a regular basis throughout this long period of time you knew her?
Try next door.
We live next door to each other.
That's close.
So if Mrs. Kilman had had any other children, do you believe that you would have known of that?
I believe I would have.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for being with us today. That's all.
You're
we want.
welcome. Okay.
Ms. Watson, anything further regarding?
No. As you see, they're a good bunch.
All right. After listening to testimony of Mary Keeler, Karen Graves, and Teresa Kilman, the court finds by clear and convincing evidence the decedent's heirs are those listed in the judgment declaring heirship. I'm going to discharge Mr. Reapin from his duties as attorney ad litem And Mr. Ripon, I show you have submitted a fee voucher for 525. Is that correct?
No, sir, Your Honor, we had submitted an agreed order. And I can't explain to the court why it's not in the court's file because I'm looking at it right here now. I did send it back in again today. We had agreed with Ms. Watson to a $950 fee. I also had submitted my billing to you, which is in excess of that amount. But like I said again, Judge, why it is not in the record, I don't know. I'll be happy to send it back if you like.
Now, why don't you get that filed? But Ms. Watson, that's agreed to, correct?
Yes, and the funds have been transferred.
All right, then. I will award Mr. Ripon a fee in the amount of $950. Anything further for the record, Ms. Watson?
Not for the record. Well, I will just say Miss Ayala has been fantastic, and I really, really appreciate all her help since I don't practice that much here in Fort Bend County. She's been very helpful.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for those comments. Ms. Graves, Ms. Kilman, I'm very sorry for y'all's loss.
Thank you.
All right, y'all have a good day.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. May we be excused?
Yes, you may.
All right. Take care. Y'all take care. Thank you so much, Mr. Ripon, for everything.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. It's a pleasure working with you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Hello. Good morning, Mr. Lynch. Mr. McCarty, good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Mr. McCarty. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. And
Sorry, can you volume test real fast? I'm very low. Can you all
Okay.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
1 second, Your Honor. I apologize.
All right.
Okay, I may have fixed it. Can y'all? There we go.
You good?
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Let's go ahead and move forward. We're on the record in 21 CPR 035829, estate of Benjamin Okenye Okibo. And I apologize if I mispronounced that. All those who intend to testify, if you would raise your right hand to be sworn by the court. Each of you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you provide here today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
Very good. All right, Mr. McCarty, why don't you get us started? Let's start with the airship, and then we'll move into the administration after that.
That'd be great. Thank you, Your Honor. Andrew McCarty on behalf of Ms. Bullock. She's the applicant in this matter. To begin, I'd call Vanessa Johnson to provide testimony.
Proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Ms. Johnson.
Good morning,
Could you please state your name for the court?
Vanessa Johnson.
And what was your relationship to Benjamin Okenye Okigbo?
A friend.
Okay. And are you familiar with Mr. Okigbo's family and marital history?
Yes.
Is it true that Mr. Okigbo died on December 18th, 2020 at the age of 64?
Yes.
And at the time of his death, did he reside in Fort Bend County, Texas?
Yes.
Okay. When did you first meet Mr. Okigbo?
I met Mr. Kibo in like 1991.
Okay. And are you aware that he was married to Frances Marie Okigbo in or about 1984?
Not aware of that. marriage.
And is it true that, so you're not aware that he was married to Frances Marie Okigbo?
No,
Okay. Are you aware of any other marriages that Mr. Okigbo may have had?
yes,
Okay. And what was the name of his wife?
Teresa Okibo.
Okay. And is it true that Teresa Okigbo predeceased Mr. Okigbo?
Yes,
Are you aware of any other marriages that Mr. Okigbo may have had other than his marriage to Teresa?
no,
Okay. How many children did Mr. Okigbo have?
4 kids.
Okay. Do you know their names?
Yes,
Could you please provide those for me?
Alexandria Bullock, Laura Okibo, Peter Okibo, and Paul Okibo.
Okay. And do you know Alexandria Bullock's mother?
Yes,
And what is her name?
Darlene Bullock,
Okay. And what about Laura, Peter, and Paul's mother? Do you know their mother's name?
Teresa Okibo.
And is it true that Mr. Okigbo died without leaving a written will?
As far as I know,
Okay. Do you know if a search was conducted for a written will of Mr. Okigbo?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I'll pass the witness, Your Honor.
Mr. Lynch.
Ms. Johnson, I'll be asking you some questions. I probably did over the phone, but please bear with me. Do you know where Mr. Okigbo lived before Texas?
I'm Nigeria.
Okay. And did you ever speak with him about his life in Nigeria?
Briefly, not a lot. Most
Okay.
people, his life in Houston.
During the brief statements, did he ever indicate that he had a serious relationship or even potentially a child while in Nigeria?
No, not at all.
And was your relationship close enough that you would have expected that to come up during the conversation?
Yes,
And he did acknowledge a child not by his current wife. He acknowledged Alexandria, correct?
yes,
So he wasn't keeping those kinds of things
no,
from his family. Okay.
no.
I pass the witness.
Mr. McCarty, call your next witness.
I'll call Charlene Smith.
Proceed.
Good morning, Mrs. Smith. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, I can hear you.
Could you please state your name for the court?
My name is Charlene Willis Smith.
Okay. And what was your relationship to Benjamin Okenye Okigbo?
He was my sister's child's father.
Okay. Are you familiar with Mr. Okigbo's familial and marital history?
I am.
Okay. Is it true that Mr. Okigbo died on December 18th, 2020 at the age of 64?
Yes.
And Mr. Okigbo resided in Fort Bend County on the date of his death, correct?
Yes.
When did you first meet Mr. Okigbo?
I met Mr. Okigbo in 1990.
Okay. Are you aware of whether Mr. Okigbo is married to Frances Marie Okigbo?
Yes.
Okay. And when or about were they married? What year do you recall?
I wouldn't know that, but I know he was married to her because it was mentioned by him.
Okay. Are you aware of whether they were divorced around 1986?
I knew he was divorced, but I didn't know what year.
Okay. Is it true that Mr. Okigbo married Teresa Okigbo later on in his life?
Yes.
Okay. And is it true that Teresa Okigbo predeceased Mr. Okigbo?
Yes.
Are you aware of any other marriages that Mr. Okigbo may have had other than his marriages to Frances and Teresa?
No.
Okay. How many children did Mr. Okigbo have?
4.
Okay. Could you please state the names of Mr. Akibo's children?
Alexandra Bullock, Laura Okibo, Paul Okibo, and Peter Okibo.
Are you aware of any other children that Mr. Akibo may have had other than the 4 you just listed?
No.
Okay. Is it true that Mr. Akibo died without leaving a written will?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. So to your knowledge, Mr. Akibo did not have a will whenever he passed away?
Exactly.
I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Lynch.
Hello. Again, I'll be asking you questions I already have. Your relationship with Mr. Okibo, was it such that y'all talked about his prior life and prior relations and things of that nature?
Yeah, we talked. I think we were friends.
Okay. So you would have expected that any prior relationships or prior children, it would have come up during those conversations.
I do, yes.
Okay. And you knew that he lived in Nigeria prior to Texas?
I beg your pardon?
Sorry, did you know he lived in Nigeria prior to living in Texas?
Yes, I know he was from Nigeria.
Okay. Did y'all ever talk about his time in Nigeria?
No, we never did.
You were aware, though, that Alexandra was not Teresa's child, correct?
Yes, she was my sister's child.
Yeah, and they he continued to acknowledge her and didn't try to hide the fact that he had a child from Teresa and that family, correct?
No, he never hid Alexandra.
Okay. I pass the witness.
Call your next witness for the airship if you have any further witnesses.
No further witnesses for the airship, Your Honor.
All right, then. After listening to testimony of Vanessa Johnson and Charlene Smith, the court finds by clear and convincing evidence the decedent's errors are those listed in the judgment declaring airship. Mr. Lynch, I'm going to discharge you from your duties as attorney ad litem in this matter. I show you have a fee in the amount of $1,500. Is that correct?
That's agreed, Your Honor, and that includes expenses. It's flat, everything.
Okay. All right, then. I'll award you a fee in the amount of $1,500. You're free to go, Mr. Lynch. Mr. McCarty, let's go ahead and move into the administration. You may call your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll call Ms. Bullock, the applicant.
Proceed.
Good morning, Ms. Bullock. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Ready? Can you please state your name for the court?
Alexandra Bullock.
Okay. And do you also go by Alexandra Bullock?
Yes.
Okay. What was your relationship to Benjamin Okenye Okibo?
He was my father.
Okay. Is it true that your father died on December 18th, 2020 in Fort Bend County, Texas?
Yes.
And is it true that he was 64 at that time?
Yes.
Is it correct that not more than 4 years have passed since the day of your father's death?
Yes.
And is it true that he was domiciled and had a fixed place of residence in Fort Bend County on the date of his death?
Yes.
Okay. Is it true that Mr. Okibo died without leaving a written will?
To my knowledge, that is correct. Yes.
And are you aware of whether or not a search was conducted in Mr. Okibo's home following his death and whether a will was discovered?
To my knowledge, a search was done and nothing was found.
Okay. Is it true that Mr. Okibo was married to Frances Marie Okibo in or about 1984?
Yes.
And is it true that that marriage was later terminated by divorce?
Correct.
And after Mr. Okibo's divorce from Frances, he married Teresa Okibo. Is that correct?
Correct.
And Teresa predeceased Mr. Okibo. Is that also correct?
Yes.
Okay. To your knowledge, did Mr. Okibo have any other marriages outside of his marriage to Frances and Teresa?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay. And how many children did Mr. Okibo have?
4.
Okay. Could you please name those 4 children?
Sure. Me, Alexandra Bullock, a daughter, Laura Okibo, and twin sons, Peter and Paul Okibo.
Thank you. And to your knowledge, Mr. Akibo had no other children's in the 4 you just listed?
No,
Are you familiar with the nature and extent of Mr. Akibo's estate?
yes,
And do you agree that a necessity exists for the administration of his estate?
yes,
Is it true that you're requesting to serve as the dependent administrator of his estate?
yes,
Are you disqualified from serving in that capacity?
no.
What do you anticipate to be the value of Mr. Okigbo's estate, excluding real property and property that is held in safekeeping?
Over 100,000.
Okay. Now, does that estimate include the $100,000 that is currently held in the registry of the court?
Yes,
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, we request that Ms. Bullock be appointed as the dependent administrator of Mr. Okigbo's estate, that minimum bond be set, and that the court, in calculating that bond, exclude the $100,000 that is held in the registry of the court.
Do we have any idea, minus the 100,000 that is held in the registry of the court, of what the value of the estate is?
Is that including real estate, Your Honor?
Well, if there's anything beyond the home that he lived in, let's talk about, does he have any accounts, investment accounts, bank accounts, savings accounts that haven't been transferred to the registry of the court? She said over 100,000, but I'm just trying to get a general number so I can put something down for a bond.
I understand. Alex, do you have any idea beyond the $100,000 and excluding the real estate?
no, all of the account information, I won't have access, or I haven't had access to get those balances.
Okay.
All right. That being the case, I'm going to set bond at 100,000 for now. I will adjust that accordingly based on an inventory that is completed as to the estate. If there's 100,000 sitting in the registry of the court and there's only 25,000 outstanding over that, then I'll reduce the bond down to 25,000 at that time.
Okay.
But just to be on the safe side, since we don't really have a clue of what the estate's valued at, let's leave it at 100,000. All right. After listening to the testimony of Alexander Bullock, the court finds the decedent died intestate and there's a necessity for administration. The court will grant the request of the applicant and appoint Alexander Bullock as dependent administrator of the estate. Bond is set at $100,000. Ms. Bullock, I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And that goes for everyone here. I'm sorry for y'all's loss.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarty, is there anything else for the record?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. That concludes the